Bindlestiffs, in a historical context, are to me the new wave of a very old tradition. Variety and novelty performance is probably the oldest form of entertainment. As long as the species has had one member stand up and go, "Hey, look at me, look at me, look at me," there's been Sideshow. So the Bindlestiffs are firmly in that tradition and have been since the first time I saw them, and they were performing for years before that.
Circus and subversive culture, I think, are something, especially in the past 40, 50 years, have been quite synonymous in the U.S. with groups like San Francisco Mime Troupe, the Pickle Family Circus, Circus Amok here in New York. You see a lot of crossover between street theater and circus arts.
The Bindlestiff Family Circus is the brainchild of performers Keith Nelson and Stephanie Monsa.
We knew we wanted to tour. We knew we were going to spend the next several years eating out of cans of beans because you don't make any money doing this. So Bindlestiff was the name for us. And it actually is an old word for hobo or traveler. My name is Stephanie Helene Monsieur. That's how you say it, Monsieur. Everybody says Monsieur or Moncel or Monsev. It's Monsieur. I know nobody can pronounce it, but just for the record, that's how it's pronounced.
Stephanie, as a kid, was, well, she was my big sister, so she was a bit abusive. There was an awful lot of squabbling. But she was very athletic. She sang in a band in high school. It was a band. It was a Van Halen cover tune band called Fur Pants. They were great. No, they were.
Back when I was a young kid in Advance, North Carolina, my parents took me to a Mexican circus, like a mud show that was in Moxville, and there was an elephant dog. Basically, you paid 25 cents to see the elephant dog. It was a shaved dog, and from the moment that I saw that you could shave a dog and make 25 cents off of it, I knew that show business would eventually be coming my way.
people have always liked live entertainment, whether it's a rock band, a sideshow, a theater experience, clowns, anything from, well, they don't have burlesque anymore, but anything from the highest ballet to the carnival sideshow. People love live stuff.
It's not your typical performance in front of an audience. It's not music. It's not necessarily theatrical in that it's not like a play. There's interaction, something which you actually feel comfortable laughing out loud about. And not to mention, I mean, the props, the gags, the humor, the magic of it all.
Hi, you're just in time. Come in, unwind. I hope you enjoy the show. Oh, the things we'll do to get a rise from you. Why, it's practically obscene. There's a strange chemistry that comes with release when you let yourselves go right there in your seat. We're the Bindlestiff family circus. Late at night before you go to bed, think of what you saw and keep us all alive inside your head. I have you now. Hey, somebody lock the door. The way you dreamt before tonight, you won't dream anymore. Thank you very much.
I met Keith when we both worked in a restaurant here in New York City called Around the Clock, and he taught me how to eat fire in the back alley. We would get naked and play with fire in each other's house, which eventually grew into an international fire eating act. We've traveled to Europe several times and performed in front of a variety of audiences all over the U.S.
My second year of being in college, I met David Hunt, a.k.a. David Did. He taught me to juggle. That same year, I met a group of jugglers, traded a bottle of whiskey for a fire-eating lesson, and thus learned the second marketable skill that I picked up while I was in college. David Hunt and I then, during our college years, spent a bit of time working the streets and kind of putting together a street act as we took time off from school. Then left Hampshire, moved to New York to work with Autonomous Media, and around that same period of time I got a job eating fire in a strip club, learned that you could make a living doing such a skill. I was working at Around the Clock as a waiter, and Stephanie Monsu was also a waitress, and so around 3 a.m. I would take her out to the back alley, teach her how to eat fire, and so began Fire Play, which was a two-person fire eating act that we did basically the year before Bindlestiff really came into being.
When he was young, he enjoyed just playing, like role playing and things like that. I don't know there was any particular indication of fire play type of thing, but when he was in Boy Scouts, he was chief of ceremony for Order of the Arrow. And as a result, he did some amazing productions with fire when they would have those ceremonies.
I play, I guess, three primary characters on stage, one being Kinkette, who's kind of a tranny drag clown character. Another being Kinko, the clown, who is really my first character I dealt with. He's a silent tramp clown, same of, I guess, his origins going to Emmett Kelly out of Griebling, Red Skeleton, kind of that whole era of, slapstick humor, of, kind of the clown being who is at the butt end of most of the jokes and, you know, is very naive and simple in spirit. And then Mr. Pennygaff is, I guess, my kind of talking vaudevillian burlesque character who talks a lot and, you know, does like the sword swallowing and whatnot, but, you know, he's kind of fell off the bus on his way to Vegas.
I always like sword swallowing because it was the grossest to learn and took the longest. It was to some degree. I mean, 5-ball juggling's taking probably just as long, if not a little bit longer.
He would practice every morning. I'd hear him in the living room with a wooden spoon down his throat. It was just awful. Before breakfast, of course.
The body does not want 24 inches of solid steel going down the throat. I mean, it really, in the beginning, does everything it possibly can to keep you from wanting to do that. And, you know, for a couple years, the body said, "What the hell are you doing?"
The circus is the bastard child of Sideshow, burlesque, vaudeville, with a little Benny Hill thrown in. The character that I primarily portray in the Bindlestiff Family Circus is Philomena Bindlestiff, ring mistress, whip-wielding, fiery-tongued she-devil. I also enjoy the character Lily Lipid. She is a large-butted, loose-lipped, bougie, Long Island, meddlesome, pill-popping, gin-swilling yenta, I guess you could say, for lack of a better word. It's very descriptive of her personality. Another character that I really enjoy doing and who I think represents another part of my personality is Miss Prickle, who is extremely parsimonious, very tight-assed, bossy, prissy, school marmish.
And you might wish to lubricate the orifice into which the condom will go. It is therefore important to keep your nails short and neatly trimmed and manicured so you don't tear any tender tissue. And repeat, as I do.
Bindlestiff Circus has at its heart some amazing people who have donated, you know, like given all of their time, all of their performing energy. Keith and I founded the circus.
Stephanie and I were doing the underground cabaret, usually erotic scene as a fire-eating duo, and while we were doing all of that, we were meeting, you know, all these other amazing performers, and that's, I guess, kind of where the core really started to form.
Right from the beginning, Baby D was heavily involved. She's an amazing musician and performer.
I am a humble retard. I love to hum and grunt. And if you give me candy, I'll let you see my cunt. I'll let you see my cunt.
Well, my name is David Hunt, and I performed as David did. Although I can take the claim that I taught Keith how to juggle in college, I don't know if I can take the claim to say I was a heavy influence on where Bindlestiff is today. I mean, I was a part of the show in its growing years, and I think there were so few of us, and it was a collective consciousness that coursed through this, you know, and we all suffered together on mustard sandwiches, and we all brought a certain point in the balance of the group, which seemed to have been struck.
You can really consider the birthplace of the Bindlestiff Family Circus Cabaret this place called the Charleston Bar and Grill. Charleston Bar and Grill is a 3 or 4 generation old speakeasy in Williamsburg, Brooklyn. A decade ago, we had a weekly variety show. Anybody that came in could do whatever they wanted on the stage. We had drag queens, jugglers, contortionists.
The early brewery days had a certain panache, a certain almost amateurism to it. It seemed more like something that was local, community-centered, and fun, but very, very, very politically, locally responsible and all that.
The whole story of how I met the Bindlestiffs was I used to hang out at this restaurant called Around the Clock. And there used to be this guy that worked there who would annoy the hell out of me. He would come up to me, he would say, hello, and I would turn around and he would have a nail through his tongue. That was Keith. And I always used to be like, get away from me. Always just showing me stuff. And then his girlfriend became my neighbor. And one day she asked me if I would like to be in their circus. And I was a drag queen at the time, so I never really thought of that as circus performing. So I showed up and I got in drag and I saw contortionists and fire eaters and bed of nails and all kinds of things, juggling. And I was like, why am I bothering putting on eyelashes, shaving against the grain, putting on a wig, pantyhose, and big shoes to sing a song when these people are carrying on? I have to learn an act.
You know, glamour, song and dance, rhinestones, that type of thing. Comedy, humor.
And so Stephanie and Keith first knew me as a drag queen because I had this really great thing going on. And I started working in nightclubs and whatever, and I had seen Stephanie and Keith eat fire, and I used to, so then I wanted to possess them, but they ended up possessing me.
I told her she didn't have to introduce me. Scotty the Blue Bunny, how you doing? Am I clean in the back? Shut up. Okay, I'm a bunny, and I'm gay, and it's spring, so I'm really happy, and I want to sing a little song about it. Hit it. On a clear day, rise and look around you, and you'll see who you really are. I'm a bunny on a clear day. How it will astound you, hi mommy, that the glow of your being outshines every star you'll feel part of. Every mountain, sea and shore, hey Tom, you can hear from far and near a world you've never heard before. And on that clear day, how you doing, band? On that clear day, you can see forever and evermore.
The first time that we left New York to do a Bindlestiff Family Circus show, it was just the two of us. We were going to Montague, Massachusetts for, I think, the first annual anarchist book fair, or which was this event up at the Montague at a place called the Book Mill, and we basically went up there with a couple pyrotechnics, a few nails that we could drive into our head, and a number of boxes of books. And that was, I would say, the first, what you could say was the first Bindlestiff Family Circus tour. You know, there was only one or two shows up in Massachusetts. As soon as we started doing more than just a couple spot dates, it was 5, 6, 7 performers outside of, I guess the two of us went to Burning Man together. We went down to New Orleans to do a few shows.
LA, San Francisco.
So there were a number of outings that were just the two of us, I would say the first year and a half. Burning Man is this massive party art installation event in the middle of the Black Rock Desert of Nevada. For a number of years, in the center of Burning Man, you could always find the Bindlestiff Family Circus ring.
It blew our minds in terms of do-it-yourself culture and the intense, the intense interest that people had in things, the realm of the physical, the realm of the body. Of course, as fire people, we were really intrigued by all the different things that people were doing with fire and explosives and pyrotechnics. But meeting Chicken really, really opened our eyes in terms of the ability, somebody's ability to do it yourself, to put a tour together, to take a few resources and turn it into something really big, a little duct tape, a little cardboard, and all of a sudden it's a show. And what was really telling about this legendary meeting in the desert was that the only reason we ever met Chicken was that we were lost, wandering in the desert, naked after doing a fire show, and came across a blaze on the horizon, and it was Chicken burning his circus tent after a miserable tour, a failure, an economic ruin, and he swore he'd never tour again, and he was burning the tent and burning all the circus props, and this was the blaze that drew us like moths across the desert, cold, lost, lonely, and here we met a kindred spirit, and it just was very ironic that, our relationship ended in flames also.
Our first tour was the Bindlestiff Family Circus and Circus Ridiculous combined shows. It was 25 people on the road, 2 vans that broke down all the time. Our van, Chicken John and gang did not show up when they were supposed to, so we did 2 weeks of tour without them because one of their people was in jail, one was in rehab, one was in the hospital. We finally drove 2,000 miles to meet them, to perform a show in Pflugerville, Texas. We get out of the van, the show had 4 people in the audience, and one of the vans still hadn't arrived, carrying about half of their troupe. And so began the combined show tour. That is the tour, our first tour, that we learned everything not to do while touring. I cannot thank Chicken enough for the lessons that he taught us of basically what not to do. And I would say that rawness really stuck with Bindlestiff for its first few years as we were playing kind of punk rock venues. As we learned more and more skills, and I think really got into the art form of circus and went from just being able to shove something into our heads to being able to manipulate objects to some level of expertise, the show changed with that. So we were able to, I would say, keep an audience based on our skill level as opposed to having to do something on more of a shock level.
Our first year, we dealt with vehicles breaking down all the time as being a major factor, both financially messing us up and beyond that. Generally, when we have incidents with, I guess, the law or the man, the fact that we were a circus generally saves our heinies. I think it really carries them back to them being 5 years old and having cotton candy in their hand. And also it gives you permission or an allowance to be who you are. It'd be a little bit weird as long as you're gone the next day. But they're willing to accept that circus performers are a bit off the usual beaten track. When we were in Wood River, Illinois, or actually a week or 2 before we made it to Wood River, Illinois, there was an article, a preview that came to the paper that I thought was actually a very nice write-up, but the community got very freaked out that there would be men in tights and possibly faggots performing in front of them, and created this whole community movement to keep us from coming to town. Death threats, sending 8-year-olds into the theater office saying, I can't believe, please don't bring these homos to our town. Eventually, it was a week after the Columbine shooting in Colorado, so the theater really freaked out and canceled the show.
Can I have your attention? Open up your eyes, open up your minds, open up your thoughts to the Bindlestiff Family Circus. Open up your heart, open up your mind, open up your legs. Your legs. To the Bindlestiff Family Circus!
My name is Brian Bielemeyer. I am also known as Magic Brian. I am the magician for this part of the circus tour. My magic, I guess, can best be described as wacky magic. It's kind of a cross between Harry Anderson from his early Saturday Night Live days and Amazing Jonathan. It's kind of almost like borders on a prop comic, but he does do some magic in his act.
Don't give away the secrets. It's really Jack Daniels. I promise. It's just in a smaller bottle that looks like juice. Oh my God. I'm ruined.
Tonight, Magic Brian will be doing the famous geek act in which he will be geeking a chicken.
Ladies and gentlemen, this is a real rubber chicken. So I warn you now.
For those out in TV land, that means biting the head off of a chicken for your perverse pleasure, which is actually an act that is classic in sideshow tradition, but has been banned in most states in the United States.
And rightfully so. It's bloody awful. Bloody, bloody, bloody.
Years ago, live chickens or snakes were part of the geek act. Today, some might think Magic Brian is the real deal.
Now, ladies and gentlemen, when the geek was done, pardon me, blood lodged in my throat.
Of course it's real. Are you kidding? Is that a serious question? Everything in here is real, real, real. Or your money back. No, I don't.
The bookmobile part of Bindlestiff started off as Stephanie and myself and a few boxes of books. The moment that Bindlestiff started to grow, we had Stephanie's sister Lorraine join us, not only as a banner painter, but she was the first maven and originator of the bookmobile project. Tanya and Okra came along, and with their presence, we bought an actual bookmobile. And so began the bookmobile really becoming its own autonomous project.
After being virtual for a few seasons, the bookmobile became real. It traveled with the circus for some seasons and then also was capable of going off on its own. And Tanya and Okra, two of the circus members, developed their own medicine sideshow and did spiritual healings with some of our titles, read passages and removed malign presences in the economy and culture of this country.
There's some pretty strange books on this table. The most popular book is this one, Temporary Autonomous Zone, about creating separate areas apart from normal arenas of power. The circus got a lot from this book, and it's probably our bestseller.
These are not night crawlers. These are earthworms. They're little tiny bastards covered with sawdust, spices.
I love the atmosphere it creates because I guess when people watch TV or the kind of entertainment people usually get, you've got this kind of spectacle going on, and you've got this promise of fun, freedom, and escape. And with the circus, it kind of challenges people because it's like, what if that fun and that freedom were actually in and of itself? What if it wasn't just a push to get people to buy more, to take things passively? The circus is out showing people that, you know, they can do things on their own, that they can have fun, they can have that escape from the things that they can have the escape from, you know, the whole consumer culture.
Well, I've never really done any performance. I got hired to do the bookmobile last year. I've had some involvement with Autonomy Media. And one night we were in North Carolina, and Stephanie started feeding me worms. And I went up on stage and I ate some bugs, and then I went backstage and Stephanie started going, "Gooba gobba, one of us, one of us."
Nobody has a better work ethic Nobody has more hope for the future. Nobody encourages their contemporaries more than those two people. That's it. Nobody is more welcoming. You want to do something with us and then go out in the world and do it on your own, God bless you. They come to my shows. You know what I mean? They're not, just because the bunny really popped out in their company doesn't, they're not proprietous about it at all. You know, they make what they make, you make what they make. You know, there's more than one fire eater in the family. Good. I don't want to eat fire every night. You eat fire tonight. Oh, there's more than one juggler in the family. Fantastic. Everybody, and I think it's a really natural process where everyone's niches have been concerned. You know what I mean? Like, Stephanie is the whip cracker, you know? I really doubt she would like to share that. You know, that's the kind of thing where you really only need one. Like, everyone's passions have sort of aligned. Everybody has their own things. Like, Keith is the sword swallower.
We've made a point to work with as many people as we possibly can. People like Tanya Gagne, Una Mimna.
Well, what I learned, like I went to college in New York and, got a job outside of college that summer just being a spotlight operator for Big Apple Circus. And I just thought it'd be a summer job just to clear my head after college and then go back to New York and start some career or whatever. But I ended up staying there for 5 years, running all the lighting and doing the electricity and putting up the tents and learned how to drive the truck and forklift. And I saw a bunch of aerial acts and I saw, girls looking really happy doing it. And I thought, well, there it is. That's what I want to do. So I couldn't do it there. And so I left there and, I had all these ideas in my head and I'd seen hundreds of acts and I'd seen them hundreds and hundreds of times. I ran the lights, and I took cues off of their movements. So I was really studying what they were doing. And the job made me really strong. Like, there was a lot of climbing involved and a lot of endurance involved in the whole just job of it. So yeah, I left. I got a trapeze. I set it up in New Orleans and I made a little still act. And I just worked it from there, pretty much. The rope act, like 2 years ago, I went to London and I took about 3 or 4 classes in this school there, which was great. I mean, like, Circus is so different there. And the school was practically free. It was £10 a class. It's like $15. You could practice all day. It was just, you couldn't find anything like that in the States, and if you did, it'd be formidably expensive. But so I learned a couple of basic moves in London on the rope, and then bought a rope there and took it home and worked it, and figured out, where things would go, and made a couple of my own tricks, and just, I really took to it, like, more than the trapeze. And now I'm working on the lyre, so you have to have 2 acts basically. You can't go on the rope with just one. And trap acts are a dime a dozen, so I needed to have another area type. So that's the lyre, and I'm trying to work that. It's pretty obvious that it's new and it's not as together as I need it to be, but it's coming along.
For many years, Una Mimno was an aerialist in the Bindlestiff Family Circus show. A few years ago, she purchased a motorcycle high-wire thrill act and needed a rider to ride her motorcycle. And, well, Stephanie decided to take that job on. And for the past couple summers, you could see Una and Stephanie on the steel pier of Atlantic City, 80 feet up in the air, doing daredevil thrill act stunts on a motorcycle and then trapeze. Daniel Smith, a.k.a. the Rubber Boy, has gone from being a kid living in the panhandle of Florida to now being an internationally recognized variety act.
We met him because we were playing at a punk rock bar there called Sluggos, and he showed up as we were loading in and asked if he could perform with us and sort of demonstrated his unique talent, just a small portion of it. And of course, we were very excited about having a local performer join us. We were, at that time, always open to surprise guests and meeting the local talent. So he, at the prescribed point in the show, he got up on stage, began doing the most unbelievable ragdoll, joint bending, spine twisting contortions I'd ever seen, and like nothing I'd ever seen before. He doesn't move like a human. He moves like a fluid, element or a rag. The audience went nuts. We thanked him very much for his time, and thought that was the end of it. The next morning, as we had stayed over with friends that night, and as we were leaving, he showed up and asked if he could just jump in the van and go with us. He said that he had gotten rid of his belongings, quit his job, sublet his apartment, made sure that his pets were taken care of, and he was ready to go on the road and perform for the rest of his life. Every tour we go on, we have a little gathering or a blessing or whatever, or the van, and tomorrow morning we'll do it. I get a bottle of either pink champagne or malt liquor, and we crack it over the hood of the van, and we all say a little blessing, and everybody puts some token or trinket on the hood for a blessing, so that we all have our little fetish objects. I had a little black box, let's just say, and we would stop at truck stops and roadside gas stations, and I would spend an hour or two trying to make phone calls and trying to make free phone calls, basically. And it only worked on AT&T phones and only in certain regions of the country, so I'm glad that actually the very first tour I booked standing outside on Broadway under the Marcy Avenue train platform using this payphone, and it was winter, so it was like every night I would go out at 7 or 8 o'clock and stand there for 2 or 3 hours and make booking phone calls on this payphone. And like the train would go by every now and then, and I'd be like, oh, excuse me, hold on one moment, please, and try to muffle the sound of the train going by. It was my office, my outdoor office.
My name is Skip Shirey. I spell Skip with an X. I'm the musician of the circus. I play background music to most of the acts. I also do a couple feature presentations. I do a song called Don't Sleep with the Clowns.
Don't sleep with the clowns. I know you are tempted to let privates be nuzzled by soft bulbous nose. Those whose hearts hunger for clown meat fall under a spell from which no cure is known. You already know the song.
And I also do a bit called Hooked on Tamponophonics, where I teach the audience how to play music on the tampon applicator.
I'm out of 4 billion people on the planet, I'm better at playing tampon than any of them. And there's not many things a person can say, there's probably nobody better.
How did you
this.
discover that you could play a tampon? Is it by accident or on purpose?
Well,
Tell him the story.
I'll tell the story. All right, here's the deal. I was
sitting on the toilet.
I'm also Skippo the Clown, and the idea of the show is that I'm an Albanian prince who is a musical genius, has come to this country, and he wants to be a clown in the circus, but they tolerate it, so he'll sell programs, and they pull him from the stage, pull off what I call the clown membrane, which is this pantyhose thing with archrome-like eyes, a red nose, and a mouth off his head, and they force him to put on the coat and tails and the ruffled shirts. Then he transforms, his personality transforms, and he becomes the great Skipisto.
Tonight's the last show for about 4 weeks, and then we hit the road and do shows every night for 2 months all over the East Coast, from Vermont down to Florida, basically.
You guys are doing all right tonight, right?
Yeah, we're doing pretty good, actually. Hello. Is anybody in clown makeup? Because it's $5 off if you're in clown makeup.
We were all in clown makeup last week and we didn't get a reservation, so we couldn't do it this week.
You couldn't do it.
My name's Smarty Pants. I'm the world's first Elvis impersonating clown. Because like I like to say, there's a lot of Elvis impersonators out there, but only one Elvis impersonating clown.
Now the ukulele lady fool around with you.
Well, Keith, you just
There's always musical acts. There's always music acts in circuses, but really I'm more vaudeville. You know, like that's my Bindlestiff is circus and burlesque and vaudeville and sideshow and all those things. If it were just a circus, we'd be in a tent, you know, and we'd have more elephants.
First time that we met Jonah Logan, aka Rocket Johnny, he had seen that we were playing a show in Flint, Michigan. He's Canadian, and Flint, Michigan was pretty close to him, so he decided to grab his pogo stick, come down, and that was the beginning of the Rocket Johnny Bindlestiff Family Circus connection.
I performed two characters. A character that I just developed once I started touring with the Bindlestiffs, Rocket Johnny. It was kind of a one-dimensional character of sorts, that superhero that doesn't, you never see his face, but he's supposedly the handsomest man in the world. Wears a toaster on his head and attempts various daredevil feats throughout the night.
Gentlemen, boys and girls, and ladies, I, Rocket Johnny, the handsomest man alive, shall be chained and shackled to the horrendously hot hound of Hades. Folks, run while you still have legs, but look while you still have eyes. Never before has a dog this flammable, this ferocious, this furry been let loose on a circus stage. Can I complete this Herculean task and escape the wrath of this combustible canine? Who knows? Who fucking cares? Just stay back and enjoy the show. Okay, folks, I'm going in. Here, doggy, doggy.
And then my other character is Buster Keaton-ish Chaplin, kind of an amalgamation of Harold Lloyd, Chaplin, and Keaton, and Harry Langdon, all the great silent clowns.
The Bindlestiffs went up to Canada to work with Jonah Logan on his own show, the Daredevil Opera Company's Circus Inferno. Circus Inferno is a pyrotechnic-based circus spectacle. Welcome to Bindlestiff Family Circus World Headquarters. As you enter here, you have Stephanie's office, kind of the, I guess, sewing room, trapeze and juggling space. You can do a little bit of whip cracking and knife throwing in the front hall. But, you know, none of the big whips come out until you get up on the roof. Right here you have the Bindlestiff family ring razor. But,
well, we had an agreement that he would hold my whip targets for a number of years until we got the knife throwing act, and then I'm to be the target for that. So it's a fair trade. I think.
I'm going to do a year with a blow-up doll, and you know, if I can do a year with a blow-up doll and not hit the doll ever, I think I'll be ready.
I guess most people's thoughts about having an act like the Bindlestiffs or any other sideshow performance in a traditional theater is that, boy, that's a pretty weird venue for those kind of shows. But in point of fact, it's like those acts coming home. Sideshow, after all, in its incarnations here in this country, is vaudeville under canvas. And a return of sideshow, a return of variety and novelty performance to a theater is a great big homecoming as far as I'm concerned.
Down and Out in New York, which was one of the first kind of major efforts we made in an off Broadway theater to create a set, to find a theme and follow it and stick with it, and work with, create a little bit of a scenario with characters, not necessarily a storyline, but a scenario, a context into which to place all the circus acts. The premise is that we are in the dark ages of Rudy Giuliani's cultural crackdown in New York. The cabaret laws are being enforced. People are being arrested for dancing. But we are expressing our frustration with the Giuliani administration, its police brutality, and its kind of coldness towards artists. The mayor made a regular appearance in the circus. We had hookers, we had drug addicts, we had, visiting acts from out of town. We had a fun set that looked like an alleyway in New York. We had trash all over the stage. There was a juggling act in which trash bags were juggled back and forth. Again, it's like any other Bindlestiff show. It's a collaboration between all the artists involved. Amy Gordon played a really fun kind of innocent janitor character. Michelle Matlock, who is a Shakespearean-trained actress and a brilliant clown, was our insensitive cop. Clark McFarlane and Sylvia Machete were alternately a cop and a hooker or a pimp and a hooker. Angelo A.J. Silver, one of the finest roping performers, played a pimp.
They said they wanted me to be part of it, but it was about what happened to all of the characters that you saw on 42nd Street once Disney came in and cleaned it up. What happened to the prostitutes and the drug dealers and the hustlers and the pimps? And they said, listen, can you think of a way to fit your Western act into this theme? So Stephanie was making a pimp coat, this full length fur coat, and she said, in the show, in the opening Charivari, she wanted me to wear it. So basically, we came up with the idea of doing a pimp roping act, which is something I've pretty much become known for.
Bindlestiff has always been a burlesque circus. By that, I mean we do burlesque of other entertainment. Take, for example, the Dixie Stampede, North versus South Dinner Theater is one of Dolly Parton's projects in Branson and Pigeon Forge. The Bindlestiffs went in to see it while we were on tour, and the straitjacket act that you see in Down and Out is basically what we brought out of it. It was a two-person straitjacket act, escape act, in which Magic Brian and I were chained together, and he was representing the North, I was representing the South, very WWF style, and we basically, battled it to the death. In 2002, Bindlestiff tried an experiment. We took on a management team, Fingerboard Road, to try to help us move to the next level. It was right after 9/11, and we were losing about $10,000 a week on Buckaroo Bindlestiff's Wild West Gender Bender Jamboree, and really need to switch things around. And look to Tom and Rich to hopefully, or we looked to Tom and Rich to help us figure out how we could make Bindlestiff a tighter ship, if you will, and make it an arts organization that can have a major impact on today's world. He came up with the idea that Bindlestiff Family Circus was basically unmanageable. We're still looking for an agent that can make sure that we're working all the time, but when it comes to the nitty-gritty of Bindlestiff at this point, we're not really ready for outside management sources. It's much more of a family operation.
I think they're great. I think they're great because they're carrying on the old tradition of the Sideshow, and if it weren't for the Bindlestiffs and a few other groups like them, those arts would die. And they're bringing it back in a different way. The old sideshow acts, the fire eating, the sword swallowing, the magic, the things you would have to go see in a carnival sideshow that no longer exist, or in an amusement park where they no longer have these shows. So they're carrying on tradition, and that makes me very happy. I'm also happy because they do various kinds of shows. They can create a show for children, for families, or for adults.
Next year we're working on Buckaroo Bindlestiff's Wild West Gender Bender Jamboree, which will include some gun spin, and these are a little duct taped up, primarily because as I in the learning realm of doing it all, they've had a couple falls. But my hope eventually is to be able to take 3 of them and juggle them while firing blank.
We had an even more formal set. We had a script, we had a storyline, we had a basic premise to work off. We created a mythos to work from. And this was where a really interesting group collaboration happened. Brian Bielemeyer, who's known as Magic Brian, Clark McFarlane, who with his wife Sylvia were Planet Banana, and Cornmo really came to the forefront as writers for this story. Cornmo wrote some great songs that sort of narrated the story. Clark and Brian wrote a lot of really great comedy moments that served as transitions or helped to frame the acts that were being performed. Una Mimna choreographed some great double trapeze moments for herself and for Sylvia, and she also wrote some lyrics for the songs that developed the characters that we were working with. We had a beautiful set that was made by Stuart Levy. We had a whole cast of characters and roustabouts that each added their own personal creative take on what the storyline was. I tried to create costuming and tie everything together visually that way. It was a really great collaboration. The band was terrific. That was Cornmo, Todd Deatherage, and Tim Hoey. He was a group of about 13 to 15, which is a really unmanageable size for a Broadway theater. There were a lot of ego confrontations at that time, but I think when I look back, it was one of the best memories I have of real pure collaboration and all the trials and tribulations that entails. That was a big one, probably one of my favorites. We did it without a director.
I always wanted to make it to Broadway without a director. Well, the Palace of Variety was near Broadway, about 100 yards, and it was right after that we took on Michael Preston and Barbara Carger to help give us an outside eye, but I feel great that I made it within 100 yards of Broadway and never had a director.
The amazing Bindlestiff Family Circus, Vaudeville, Variety. It's all live, it's all real, and it's all on the inside. So come on, folks, step on in. Step through the doors, because the freaks are waiting to see you.
Bindlestiff, as a non-profit arts organization, has been privileged to receive a space grant from another non-profit arts organization called Shashama. Shashama is administered by Anita Durst and an amazing staff. During the 5 or 7 years that her dad was contemplating redeveloping a stretch of real estate on 42nd Street between 6th and Broadway, he allowed Shashama to lease these spaces out or rent them or donate them to artists, and we were among those lucky several to be given a space to do our thing. So for 7 months between 2003 and 2004, and another 3 months over the winter of 2004 and 5, In the interim between the abandonment of these properties and their redevelopment, we were given a storefront to run and operate. In the lobby, we created the Free Museum of Times Square, in which we displayed ephemera having to do with circus, sideshow, vaudeville, minstrel shows, burlesque, and the history of Times Square as an entertainment center. In the back of the theater, we created a 50 or 60 seat black box theater with a 23-foot ceiling, which was eminently suitable for rigging and juggling and throwing things high in the air. This theater was used by a dozen variety groups. We presented probably 24 shows in the first season we were there, including 3 of our own: the Cavalcade of Youth, High Heels and Red Noses, and the Lily Lipid Show. In our variety shows every weekend, we hosted probably 200.
sushi store with a great big sign hanging over the door. Every morning, just a little bit late, employees would pass the temple gate. The branches would break, the dog would woof as they ran by the temple with its high arched roof. And over the pond, back by the ridge, sushi hunter took positions on the bridge. Sing a swifty! Oh, swifty! Oh, swifty!
2 years ago, Vivica Gardner took on the directing of a program that we call the Cavalcade of Youth. It is folks under the age of 21, for many of them having their first opportunity to work a live stage. For some of the others, they're seasoned professionals helping to inspire other youths on the possibilities of, you know, what lots of practice and rehearsal can get you. But it's really helping create the next generation of variety artists and giving them a chance to actually see what it feels like to work on a stage and have a live audience.
Keith came to me with an idea that he and Stephanie had developed for trying to encourage young performers to go into the variety arts. A lot of the vaudevillians that we know got into it in the 70s or the old hippie days and are growing up, and we wanted to encourage young people and young performers to consider the variety arts. Keith came to me with an idea for a show for children and a program to help develop young artists. And we started the Cavalcade of Youth. The Cavalcade of Youth is a program for developing young variety artists. We've had 2 shows a year now for the last 3 years, and I think 5 out of 6 of them have been sellouts, so it's been very successful. It's a variety show where all the performers are under age 21, and we've had really a mix of performers. We've had a lot of jugglers. My background is as a juggler, so it's probably a little overweighted in that direction, but we've had acrobats and aerialists, musicians, magicians, clowns. You know, it is working with children, and we try to be encouraging and supportive, but sometimes, you know, Hulk crash kids.
The Lily Lipid Show is really a public service to New York. Stephanie, or Lily Lipid, creates a stage that is welcoming to just about every variety act out there. It's a place for amateurs to come try new stuff, professionals to try new stuff. Some people are taking the stage for their first time ever, and other people are taking material that they've been doing for 20 years and just tightening it up and making it a little bit better. It's free if you perform, it costs a little bit if you don't, and as long as we can find a space that we can use for that service, we love putting Lily on.
I just want to tell you a little bit about the history of the Lily Lippitt Room. You see, this is an open stage for variety performers. We don't allow poets here. We don't allow guitar strumming singer-songwriters here. We kick them in the teeth. I pretty appreciate that too. There may be some teeth kicking. Keep that in mind. This here is the law. 7 minutes is all you're allowed. 7 minutes on this stage before you get yanked into my dressing room for some thorough punishment. And believe me, it's not pleasant.
Angeles is Los Angeles, baby. Holy shit. Holy New York. Holy San Francisco. Holy Peoria, Holy Moscow, Tangiers, Istanbul, Moscow, Tangiers, Istanbul, Moscow. Sir. Holy time in eternity, holy eternity in time, holy the clocks in space, holy the fourth dimension, holy the fifth international, holy the angel and Moloch. There was a guy.
Lily Lippitt has always had a number of characters, unique individuals, weirdos in some cases, who have become regulars. One of my favorites is this fella Eugene Calamari, the human doormat. Anytime that Eugene would hear of the Lily Lippitt show happening anywhere in New York, he would make sure that he was there every single week. Eugene would lay on the floor wearing a doormat on his stomach, and, well, he would have women vacuum him and step on his face. I think Eugene used to be a vacuum cleaner salesman. We always thought that Eugene should be paying us $400 a session every time he performed on the Lily Lippitt stage, but we let him be vacuumed and stepped on by women for nothing. We never really tried to judge anybody during Lily Lippitt, but if they went over the 7-minute mark, that was the end of their show.
The next year, we wanted to try something different. We wanted to try another themed show called High Heels and Red Noses, which again sort of looks at the Cold War era, just at the start of the new Gulf crisis, the ridiculous policies of the Bush administration, the paranoia that engulfed us all after 9/11, and we wanted to set it against the backdrop of a 1950s burlesque. So this time we enlisted the aid of Michael Preston and Barbara Carger to help tie this creation together, because again it was an ensemble piece that was written and choreographed and created by the folks involved. Tanya Gagne did a lot of great choreography and movement stuff for the dance numbers. Jenny McGowan created some good character stuff for our atmospheric presentation. Matt Morgan and Adam Kukler, who had worked together for quite some time as clowns on Ringling and who have a relationship, made some beautiful comedy bits to do with themselves and with Keith.
High Heels, Red Noses was the first time that Bindlestiff was ever brave enough to have a group juggling number in which basically all of the performers in the show were in the juggling act.
Come on along, enter into our world. It's a land of make-believe, where the things you see and the things you feel are much greater than if you could conceive. This drunken dirty bum was looking through the trash. He had nothing better to do. When much to his surprise, before his bloodshot eyes was a sexy high-heeled shoe. How do you like that? High heels and red noses, high heels and red noses. Pretty ladies and funny funny clowns. High heels and red noses, high heels and red noses. When the world has got you down, down, down. Ladies and gentlemen, welcome into the tent. You are about to witness the fantastic conflagration of Circus. Thank you all so much for taking the great leap across Broadway to the old 42nd Street. There's no shiny neon over here. And the very last peep show just closed moments ago. It's still a little dirtier, earthier, grittier than Disney World over there, but not for long. The end is coming. A big change will be sweeping over this end of the block, and soon it'll be all commercial and shiny clean, just like everywhere else in New York. Hooray! But for now, we'll enjoy this time together, you and us.
In High Heels, Red Noses, Matt Morgan had an act called The Kissing Booth. In Matt's kissing booth, he put up a sign that said, "Kisses $20." Some towns, you would have lines going to the back of the theater of people lining up for kisses. Usually once he dropped it down to kisses $1, but in Georgia, he would have 100 people ready to kiss him. I think New York is the only town that I ever saw him have to put up "We'll kiss you" for a $1 sign. When we were running High Heels, Red Noses at the Palace of Variety, we had a few nights in which Raja Azar, the keyboardist, would be unable to perform with us. Having had the show basically created totally out of his music, we felt somewhat stranded and need to figure out how we could make the sound of High Heels, Red Noses work. Adam Kukler turned us on to Peter Buffano, who's a ex-Ringling Clown and amazing musician. And Peter came in, learned how to do Raja's music, and was able to make it so High Heels, Red Noses went on seamlessly. From there, Peter stuck with us, and he, Stephanie, and I wrote Gutter to Glitter.
We again decided to create a piece that was more manageable, and so we cut the number of people involved down to just 3, myself, Keith, and Peter Buffano. The idea was that we wanted to create a marketable theater piece that would showcase the unique talents that the 3 of us had, and also be of historical interest. We wanted to talk about the importance and the relevance of the popular art forms, sideshow, circus, vaudeville, to American culture, and where they came from in American culture, and the contributions that they've made to even pop culture today. Got awarded a National Performance Project Creation Grant. We went out to Cedar Rapids, Iowa for 10 days in January of '05. We stayed at the amazing Legion Arts Theater in Cedar Rapids and just put our heads together and made a show. We came back to New York and again asked Michael and Barbara to come in and look at what we've done, and they were able to help us tighten things up quite a bit.
When we were in Cedar Rapids, Iowa, working with Peter on the Gutter to Glitter show, a friend of his was basically flying over and made a pit stop in Cedar Rapids, Iowa. Kata, who's this violin player out of Boston. And Kata brought a whole other sound to the show, and when we can afford to have a violin join the 3-person show, thus making it a 4th, Kata creates a sound level that just kind of adds a whole other dimension to the Gutter to Glitter production.
Wait a minute. This isn't milk at all. It's something completely different. Half and half, and your cup is not enough. You need half and half and half. Nothing satisfies quite like half and half and half. Why, it's got calcium, vitamin, it's fortified with supplements, RDA, WSA, 150%. This coffee's killing me! Well, that's 'cause you use creaming, silly. You need half and half and half. You need half and half. No, it's like half and half, but it's got 50% more. The next time you're in the dairy aisle, ask for half and half and half.
One of the most important educational experiences for me as a performer has been working in the American Sideshow. Stephanie and I have both had the opportunity to work with such amazing legends as Ward Hall and Chris Christ with their World of Wonders. It's an actual 10-in-1 sideshow traveling the American carnival scene. It's got the 65-year-old fire-eating midget, the fat man, the bearded lady, the full museum. For $1 to $2, you can see it all.
I came across the Bindlestiffs pretty early on in my research, was shocked and amazed. I was on the make for anything that was involved with Sideshow, especially anything that was involved with the modern incarnations of it. Pretty much on the Carnival and the Circus Midways, it's been long gone. It's borderline totally gone. Little grind shows, those kinds of things still exist, but you can't find the working acts like you find in the Bindlestiffs and some of the other very few college and comedy club type Carnival and Sideshow performances. I first saw them, in fact, here in Baltimore when they performed at a rave sort of affair, kind of a big event for artists here in Baltimore. And they blew everybody away. They burned the joint down, almost literally now that I'm thinking about it, but...
That's great. They obviously were in touch with historical aspects of circus that you don't usually run into with amateurish groups. Usually an amateurish group doesn't know anything. They obviously knew things beyond what they were doing.
Like even our family shows, we're going to be putting, thoughts into kids' head, that nothing's impossible, they can do whatever they want, that they can take their lives in their own hands. And when you're telling a 12-year-old that their parents freak out, but that's when they need to really be receiving that. We drive a 6-inch solid steel spike into the head, and they felt it and held it. They know it's real, and they're never going to believe another thing that comes out of the textbook that they're like, huh. I think that's a major part of our power.
The plate spinning act has been kind of a pain in the ass. The fallout from the plate spinning act. At one point we agreed, I think back in 98 or 99, to allow HBO to film a special show staged in New Orleans at the Howlin' Wolf for its Real Sex program. This show was not a typical Bindlestiff show. It was a very crassly constructed set list that contained only acts that were sexy or had scanty costuming or had dick jokes. Any act that Bindlestiff did that was at all sexy was lined up and presented on this stage. They brought in a lot of local cutie pies to take off their tops and lap dance the audience. They created this kind of very sexy carnival atmosphere, which was fun but wasn't necessarily a typical Bindlestiff show. I think it was very artificial. I think what's very cool about what we've done with Bindlestiff in exploring taboos or the body is that we sort of intersperse those shocking moments or moments that give you pause or moments that kind of take you by surprise with more standard entertainment fare, like have a novelty ukulele player and then a juggling act and then a great aerial act and then maybe throw something in that's really out there.
We're reaching out to a broader audience now than in the past, and this HBO spot has really dogs our heels because it's what people still think of when they hear Bindlestiff. I was recently at the National Performance Network annual conference and people heard Bindlestiff. Oh yeah, the plate spinning act. And it's like, yeah, but they don't really do that much anymore. And they have this whole, they have so many other skills and they have so much more to offer than that. And it doesn't get the same kind of publicity, I guess, for obvious reasons.
Well, it was let me just say it was very Dionysian and revelish and drunkenish and lascivious and all those wonderful things that one would love to see on stage and almost never does. Okay, it transported me through the whole history of popular entertainment, I've got to say. And there is, in fact, although it involves a different gender, there's a very similar act on a vase from the 5th century BC, ancient Greece, by Duris, that's in the British Museum, that the first time I saw it, I really didn't see it because they had it in the cabinet with the interesting scene against the wall. And then the last time I saw it, it was in a cabinet out in the middle of the room and completely glassed, and you could walk around it and see all the figures very clearly. And the Duris is actually a satyr who's sort of bending back with an erect phallus, balancing a special kind of wine glass on the end of his phallus, and then one of the other drunken satyrs is pouring wine into it. And in the case of Keith and Stephanie, I'm not going to give you any graphic details, but they did a female version of plate spinning that was quite amazing. Very, very amazing.
Living in New York, you get the opportunity every now and then to make it onto national TV just because you can be to the studio in under an hour. The David Letterman segment, Is This Anything, due to its nature, is always in need of variety acts, and well, they called me to come in and swallow a stick while spinning a plate on top of it. To me, I don't think there was much excitement about it being Letterman. It was primarily the fact that I was going onto the Ed Sullivan stage in the Ed Sullivan Theater and spinning a plate. To me, to spin a plate on the Ed Sullivan stage is one of the peak things that a variety act can do.
I think the best moments with Bindlestiff have occurred on stage in an ensemble. Some of my favorite moments were in the good days of Buckaroo Bindlestiff's Wild West Genderbender Jamboree, the great group feeling that we'd have at the end of the big show. There were 14 people in a kick line on stage together, including our buddy Mike Connor, sometimes in a tutu. Another favorite moment would be at the Lily Lippitt Open Mic, where people would try out new acts, ridiculous material. Some of the worst moments have been on tour with 10 people crammed into a van, not able to do their laundry for many days, not eating very well, and spending many long hours driving and performing and loading and carrying stuff around and being harassed by locals. Those are some pretty bad ones. But I think all in all, they definitely tip in favor of the good, all my memories.
I was really excited by the circus. What I saw evolving and the content. It was challenging. It was fun. It was sexy. It was intelligent, and it was something that you really didn't see a lot of. There isn't a lot of performance that's accessible. There isn't, I'd almost never go to the theater. I can't really afford theater tickets. But this particular style of entertainment was really appealing to me. I've always loved performing, and I was really eager to be a part of it. I had a lot of respect for what they were trying to do, and I wanted to be there. And I still do. I still have enormous respect for how far they've come and for what they're doing. And I miss it a lot.
Well, I really look at the clown as kind of being a mirror so people can see just how absurd things really are. And in that, I definitely want to make somebody laugh, but I also enjoy seeing them not always just be happy, to really make them dig down inside and feel for themselves, that I think we're able to bring out depression. We're able to have somebody stare at you, but kind of on the verge of vomiting, but they can't take their eyes off of what's happening. Really kind of, I think, taking somebody on a whole emotional ride is, it's not very important for a clown. It's not like we aren't the birthday party clown that comes and blows balloon face paint, boom, happy to get out of here. We're trying to get people to open up their eyes and think and, kind of live again, be alive. In whatever ways we need to. And depending on the town you're in and, you know, what that town's dealing with, we have to change accordingly. That, you know, if like a town has had every one of their alternative venues shut down, you know, we're going to address that fact. You know, if there's been a lot of gay bashing, we're going to address that fact. And, you know, sometimes, or generally with a comic tone, but not always, you know, like a ha-ha happy comic tone. You know, I think that comedy is not always, you know, quote, a positive, you know, up sort of thing. That, you know, there's a lot of dark comedy, and I think that we are working on mastering, you know, both, all various levels of comedy, and, you know, that's kind of the magic of the Bindlestiff.
One can't eat fire forever, one can't hang from a trapeze forever, but one can always be involved in circus and the furtherance of variety arts. I mean, I think you move your audience in a very visceral and real way. It's, to me, the most appealing artistic medium that I have experienced, because I've done lots of different things in my life. So I see myself staying with this forever, you know, in some way or another. Maybe I'll be a crazy old lady with a cane, like yelling at little girls to straighten their leg on the trapeze, but I'll be involved in some way.
That's why I love the circus, and that's why I love those people as people, because it's not just what they're doing on stage, you know. It's the way that they live their lives. You know, we're truly fascinated. I'll speak for myself. I'm truly fascinated, you know, by the spectacle, by just the way of living life. And I'm glad it includes a stage, and there is a exhibitionism, you know, and all that good stuff, but it's escape. It's the ecstasy of escape.